I'd rather design something that's in a million people's homes than in one art gallery.
This is the man behind the Chili's bottle.
If you went into a plumbing apprenticeship when you're 18, you'd make more money as a plumber than you would as an industrial designer with 50, 60 grand of debt. So
James Wood runs Studio Wood, an industrial design studio and a team of 7. Not in London, a mile from the sea in Bournemouth. His products are in millions of homes. The Chili's Series 2 bottle and the Joseph drawer store among them. He built it as a freelancer from 2013 and did not make a single hire until 2019. He grew up working class, coded at Barclays for 3 years and fell into design almost by accident. So he has a hard view on who the industry lets in. He thinks design has become the preserve of the few who could afford to work for free.
for that application, we didn't pay to share it anywhere, and we had 350 applications for that.
So I put the honest question to him. Plumber at 16 or a 40k designer in London, which would you tell your son to take, honestly?
He's 6. I'd tell him to do the design one because he is like a little mini-me.
This one is about who design is actually for. Whether the people who make the things in your home look anything like the people who use them. And what it takes to build something steady without chasing the numbers everyone tells you to chase. This is Why Design. James Wood, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you on Why Design.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on, Chris.
Not at all. I'm glad we finally got to sit down. So, James, for those listening, they're seeing you, they're hearing you for the first time. Give us the quick version. Who are you, and what do you do?
So, I'm James Wood, and I'm the founder and creative director of an industrial design agency based down in Bournemouth called Studio Wood. Currently, a team of 7 of us work here.
Amazing. So give us a flavour. Who's on the team? What kind of stuff do you get involved in typically?
Yeah, sure. So team set up at the moment, kind of director level, you've got myself as creative director and Sophie, who works for me as managing director. And then at a senior level, we've got Celine and Michael. Celine slightly more front end leaning and Michael more sort of DFM back end leaning. We've got Brett, who's a mid-weight designer, who's been with us for about 4 years now. And we've got 2 juniors, Song and Jamie, who joined about 4 months ago, I think now. And a few freelancers who have supported the studio over the years on and off when we need them as well. Mainly, obviously, most stuff's between the 7 of us, but yeah.
And in terms of the work you do, what are people most likely to recognise? What have they already held in their hand?
Yeah, so most recognisable is probably, in the UK at least, is the Chili's Series 2 bottle. I think that's the biggest selling one just over my shoulder there. Not 2. So I think it's the highest selling product we've done for them that I think hit the market in, 2021. Still going. It just actually went through a design renewal. So it visually looks the same, but we've improved a lot of the end of life, some quality sort of issues with UX and usability and stuff like that. But visually, it's exactly the same still. Another one would be, there's a product called Drawer Store, designed for Joseph back in my freelance days. It's kind of a cutlery tray organizer that stores knives, forks, spoons diagonally. So essentially, rather than have the whole footprint of a drawer to store those things, it basically needs something that's probably about, 15 to 20 mil wide, and you can still store the same amount of cutlery, which has been a really successful seller for them. I think both are in the millions of volume, so both have been great selling products. Yeah,
amazing. Yeah, I know when we prepared for this, you said you enjoy working on kind of mass production products, that can reach as wide an audience as possible. Why is that? And why is that important to you versus maybe the one-offs or the small kind of problems?
I think, it's probably mainly comes down to access. I don't think design should be for a few people, and I'd rather design something that's in a million people's homes than in one art gallery. I know the industry and media might think different things are important and the spotlight tends to be come in different ways, but for me, I think how you design probably links quite tightly to your background and how you grew up. And growing up working class, I think for me, those accessible points of design, like I think back in, the phones, stuff like the Nokia 3210, 3310, like iconic for everyone because they had that access. It was sort of pushing on in technology. It was like something you could hold and use and personalize and have access to a new technology that you couldn't have before that. That for me, that's what's important. Having everyday people be able to touch design and it transform their lives in positive ways rather than a small minority. Yeah.
Bro. No, I love that. And Bournemouth, you're a mile from the sea. So, most people might associate kind of industrial design, product design studios with London, the hustle and bustle there, but there you are down in Bournemouth. Why Bournemouth? If that's not too obvious a question, but
there's like layers to being in Bournemouth. I think some are more like lifestyle orientated, but to be really honest, it was more like it wasn't really a choice. Like I did work in London for years, freelanced in London for years, but for me, like house prices were just getting out of reach, and what you earn in our field, even as a freelancer on trying to push your day rate up, like what you can save, what you can get for a deposit. We also, with my partner at the time, were looking to have a child and we had to go through IVF, and you don't get a free cycle on the NHS in London. So we're looking at potentially like 10 grand a turn there. So being able to move or live somewhere where you do get that sort of support on the NHS, you can afford potentially a house or to be able to at least save up for a deposit, have a lifestyle. So I think that there's secondary benefits from moving here that now it's worked out. In hindsight, you can be like, oh, that's a great choice, John. You can go to, right now, I'd plan to go for a swim after this podcast in the sea, which is a great thing to be able to do. But the actual reality of coming here is I grew up near here and I couldn't afford London, essentially. And I did know, as also from growing up here, as a kid, it is a great place to grow up as well.
There's a relatively decent design scene there as well, isn't there, on the south coast?
It's picking up. Yeah, I mean, I studied here and left because there are essentially no jobs here at all. Now I think there's three of us that are agencies now. There's us, there's Aoife and Paul, and then Element Design, who were based at the Arts Scene. I think they've just moved out. So, but yeah, none of us, there was no agency or small agency, industrial design, product designers 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And you've got companies like Gosney who've now are building quite a strong internal design team, who are our neighbours actually behind us, and a few others. Yeah, so it's definitely picking up, which is great to see, considering there are a lot of people that graduate out of Bournemouth doing product design as well, but all obviously move on. So
you'd expect there to be a stronger, startup scene given the proximity to the university and the cost of living compared to London. But I'm guessing, as many young people do, they get drawn to the capital.
Yeah. I think it's like optionality when you're like, I hopped around jobs quite a lot early in my career because I just wanted to gain as much experience, work out if I preferred being in-house or in a consultancy, or test all the environments. I mean, still have that problem here that you can't come, it's very difficult to test all those environments in smaller towns where you've got fewer options to do that. So from a recent graduate up until like 30, I understand why London's so appealing, but it's part of the problem we have in the creative industry that we're too London-centric as a profession, and it's not good overall, I'd say, for the nation collectively. Yeah.
No, and it touches on a topic you've already mentioned that is on the agenda for later on, but the salaries, they just don't keep up. And I've seen this throughout my career as well. When you're at that junior to mid-level in your career, just going to London, it's not where the money is, because, the companies have got plenty of choice. The talent wants to move to London, generally speaking. So it's a buyer's market in that respect, and running a design agency, you're not producing, you may have some deals where you're getting a revenue split, a royalty, but generally speaking, you bill by the hour, by the day. It's you're limited to what you can pay people. Factor in London rent. It's just a vicious cycle.
I think for me, it's like part of the reason why years ago, I campaigned, and always being a big advocate for like paid internship work. Because I think you almost look at it one way that it was almost like a solution to that was like, well, if you don't pay interns, we have more capital to pay. And it kind of, but it holds everyone down. Whereas if you go, do you know what, we're going to pay people for working for us during the university level educated, deserve to be paid at least minimum wage. But if you do that, you quickly get the juniors going, oh, hang on, they're quite close behind me. And you actually push everyone up, and then that forces the agencies to push their fees up, and you kind of allow for more access, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, that was always what I imagine could happen. I don't know how underground unpaid internships have gone now, but I feel like it's more of a silent business than it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that the parallels between kind of my business and design consultancy. You know, I see pushing the fees up isn't necessarily a bad thing. You know, it means that you've got to justify the higher fees, but you do a better quality of work potentially. You know, you get taken. I've found with higher fees, you get taken more seriously. You know, and you know, I think. And I'm only going off of what I see, but I think a lot of design agencies are similar size to Studio Wood. You know, the small kind of, you know, 4 or 5 heads, and there's maybe a lack of confidence. You know, as you know, all the costs around us go up, but the fees not in parallel. You know, and it is like a lot of the creative sector. It is highly competitive, and there's a lot of people out there that will undercut to take work and you've got, that's why I think being able to move up together probably is the best way to do it, and realize that we can help each other out by kind of looking for fairer pay for what we do. And like you say, that then trickles down to the salaries. And because I think, I know for a fact, like you can, if you went and did a plumbing apprenticeship when you're 18, you'd make more money as a plumber than you would as an industrial designer with 50, 60 grand of debt. So it's quite wild. And I think it shows how we probably do need to collectively push that up if we can. Yeah. I mean, when you look at, you know, you're not comparing like for like per se, because the cost of living is much higher in the States, but you know, the salaries in the States are, you know,
wildly bigger,
double, if not, you know, triple in some cases, you know, especially, you know, California, and New York, it's unreal. You know, how much they're paying over there, and companies are still, you know, they're still engaging with US design agencies, you know, and not just US companies, it's internationally. So there's a huge opportunity for the UK to level up, but also still remain, you know, competitive on the international landscape. So we're getting ahead of the agenda here, James. So I want to kind of rewind ever so slightly back to the beginning, ask you the question that's the name of the podcast as well. Why design? You know, everyone's got a journey. Everyone's got a reason that they chose this path. You know, what was yours? Okay.
So I was slightly more unconventional in that, like, it wasn't something I knew I wanted to do when I was younger. I didn't have a plan. I think it's very easy to like understand where you want to go when you're like in school or a teenager based on who's around you, what examples you can see. And no one in my family had gone to university, so there just wasn't an awareness of like of the possibility of a job. There was nothing. I wasn't even thinking, I could go be a doctor or whatever, anything that required that level of education. But at the same time, I did have a great product design teacher at A level. I remember him sitting down and saying, like, so why haven't you applied to go to university? And he was like baffled. He could see I was like good at it, enjoyed it, and he just and I think when I think back to that moment, I think because I hadn't seen anyone do it, I didn't understand it. I didn't have any support. There probably was something as part of my psyche that was like, that's just not somewhere that you go or people like you go. That's for someone else to do. So I didn't end up going down that route. And I ended up randomly getting an apprenticeship in IT at Barclays. So I worked in IT for like 3 years after sixth form. Was training in like different coding languages and kind of working on, ironically, it's very like, it was a lot of big data stuff. It was in there, what they call their data center, where you like hold all of the data for the whole company essentially. And then if any department wants information, you have to run queries and scripts and stuff to draw it out. It's very apt now. It's very much like what's happening with AI. That's all held and crunched and stuff. But yeah, it was like the complete opposite and now I know more about myself. I know I'm like dyslexic. I'm terrible. I found learning to code so hard because it's just not how my brain works. I'm trying to like color code spreadsheets and bring visual nature to everything. I was like, I need to find something that fits who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up going to there was a friend who I worked with who wanted to he was interested to go to university to do marketing, I think. So I went with him for like support to an open day at Bournemouth Uni. And that's when I was actually sitting with him to watch them talk about the different courses. And then they did a talk on industrial design. And I was like, I love everything about what that course is about. It's everything about what I like from school. I was always more interested in the sort of creative front end than the technical reality, to be honest, of making something. And it just sort of lent into all the parts I enjoyed about it. So I from that moment, I applied, and I didn't really know much about that there are better universities than others. I just thought university's a university. And I was like, and ended up going to Bournemouth and getting on what was their industrial design course, which has been shut down now. And yeah, kind of rest is history really. But it was like and the only thing I could say, like in terms of it not seeming so accidental, is when I was thinking of where I wanted to work when I was at the bank, I did this thing where I looked back to when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old, and I worked out what were the things I would do for like hours by myself without needing support, just because I loved doing it. And those things were drawing, and I used to build like incredibly hard Lego for my age. I just do all the hardest sets if I could get hold of them. And then I kind of like broke that down. And well, John, if that's your innate like psychology at that age where there's no incentive of pay or being given anything, but you just have a drive to do those things, then I was like, if I can pivot that into a job, then I'll just do well at it. So that's kind of how another angle on it.
Kind of ties in nicely to what we were talking about before we press record. What would you be doing, at 50 if you didn't have to earn money? I guess you'd be drawing and making Lego models.
I think, I mean, I have thought about this. Like, I feel like I'd probably, if I had absolutely I didn't need to make money from it, and I'd probably had a life and I'd produced like products that had been solved in nice volumes, and I'd satisfied that part of my hunger. I'd probably get into something like more like raw sculpture or something that doesn't need a commercial output, but is just a pure form of like visual expression, I reckon, in 3-dimensional somehow. And just play around. I always find it funny, people be like, "Oh, AI is going to take all our jobs," and say we don't know what to do because we don't have jobs. I'm like, there's so many things I would do. You just live out your passions and interests and hobbies.
It does the again, this is a topic for later, but it does the administrative, the repetitive, the structured work really well, I've found. But the creative stuff, we had Stefan Klambeneva talk about this. It's like a bell curve. It does the middle bit of the bell, the highly repetitive stuff really well, but the edges where you need that creativity, where you need someone to go, aha, this is how we solve that. It ain't got that.
No.
And you see that in the dross that comes out,
going back to we're talking about what I designed as if you take the cutlery organizer as an example, it's so obviously so tied to language now that if you use the words like cutlery tray or cutlery organizer, and it's also then taking reference images that hit that, and everything in the world that exists is a certain shape and has four little things side by side. How is it ever going to convert that into something? It might be that we get to a different version of AI that's not, or a different type of model that's not an image model or not a language model, but it's something that can almost become like a 3-dimensional intelligence. It'll produce that, but I don't know of anything like that right now where it can almost problem solve 3D in 3 dimensions and then create a form off of that. Potentially. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's changing so quickly. It's exciting and scary at the same time, but I don't think it's, the jobs will change and some will go, but new ones will come around, but that's been the way, throughout history, new tools, new technologies, new machines come along, we have to, as a species adapt, it's just happened a lot quicker than it ever has done.
Yeah.
Let me pause here for a moment. Most of the leaders on this podcast did not grow because they hired quickly. They grew because they hired well. The right senior engineer can accelerate a hardware roadmap by a year. The wrong one can stall it. At Kodu, we help physical product teams make that hire with clarity and precision. If you're about to make a key design or engineering hire or thinking about your own next move, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Let's talk before you commit. We're wrapping up your story, of, those early days. You've kind of, you've almost fell into, one of the best design universities. Working class, IT SQL developer or kind of, writer, they ended up top of your class. Am I right in thinking?
I think so. I got a very good grade overall, I think.
You did really well.
I think from working before,
I
had like a crazy work ethic at uni. I think I just knew how much I disliked that job and how much of an opportunity it was to like actually work and do something you enjoy every day, because I'd worked in something I despised every day, that like I did not want to go back there. And that gave me like a crazy energy and fuel. I just worked very hard. And also I'd got a lot of like going out, getting pissed, having a good time out of my system. Yeah. I didn't need to do that anymore. Yeah. I could enjoy it now and again, but I'd had a wild time in my teenage years, to be honest. So like, and to be honest, I was quite lucky in that I didn't actually have the UCAS points to get in.
Okay.
So I think I kind of got in on like, because I just messed around at that point of my life. I wasn't grounded. I was a bit all over the place from having like such a sort of turbulent childhood that, and you weren't planning to go to university. I think I was in a place where like everyone around me, education wasn't seen as important or, so I think getting in probably lent more on me being a mature student and maybe hitting quotas and stuff. So I took it as a massive like piece of luck and opportunity that I didn't want to throw away as well.
I imagine you probably interviewed quite well as part of it, or wrote your application well, because you've got that ground of, well, I know what I don't want to do. And it looks like this, and to enable me to not do that anymore, there's this pathway. So I had similar. I flunked my A levels first. I didn't have any direction when I was 16, 17, and just coasted. Ended up working full time in retail at Iceland in Rugeley.
Nice. I've been PT well.
Had a good time. Made some good friends there. It was honest work, but it's when my boss at the time sat me down and said, "Chris, we need to talk about your career." I was like, "Oh, this isn't a career. This is just a job." And then that sparked it. And I was like, "All right, I'm going to go and talk to the local college." And that knowing what I didn't want to do kind of set me on the path for closer to what I wanted to do. Did you not have would you say your parents didn't sort of activate that like career mindset then? It's funny because I've just come back from my stag do and my dad was telling stories all weekend about kind of his life and obviously growing up and everything. He worked very hard. He's an electrician, formerly works on big construction projects, and he was saying that I was in tears one day as a kid. I'd been playing up at primary school, and he'd come home after working in Germany for like 3-4 weeks or something. I had to have a word with me, and then apparently I was in tears, sitting my sats, and I said, "I don't want to turn out like my dad." So there was a bit of that, but then I knew I didn't want to go into. I didn't want to follow my dad's path. Not that because I didn't respect what he was doing. It's just like I knew because we never saw him. He was always, and my mum was a teacher, and she was, she worked hard, but then you never saw her because she was always marking. So I kind of had some paths that I knew I didn't want to take, but it's like, I didn't really know. It was until
there's no visual representation of something you're like, that's what I want to do, or
and like recruitment wasn't a calling or anything like that. It was like when I was coming up to graduating, I studied management and marketing, and how can I apply these skills? I knew that I enjoyed working with people, and I knew that at that time I had my girlfriend at the time was pregnant, so there's some interesting life choices, but it was, I need to earn money. I need to provide for my family. It's like sales. I think I can talk. I can, I'm relatively confident. And then saw an advert for recruitment. I was like, it seems like I could work hard and be rewarded, as a direct. So that kind of didn't really know much about it. And I don't think many people going into the industry do. But then it kind of fell into some interesting roles, figured out those companies weren't the right ones for me. And then, the last company I was there for 10.5 years. So I must have been doing something right there.
Yeah.
But then that's when I got into design recruitment, and I fell in love with that.
Yeah.
And working with designers and engineers and design consultancies. So yeah, I think it's, for me, I feel I'm 42. I haven't got it all figured out, but as we were talking before we click record, I feel a lot happier now having gone through that and able to make decisions now where they're not just, I need to earn money to do things. It's like, okay, now we're in a position where I can slow down and make decisions about kind of what do the next 10 years look like. I'm cool with that. I think some people come to that realization a lot earlier in life, and fair play to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's not a bad thing to go through some stuff that you don't want to do, especially when you're young.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think
a crap job.
Yeah, and I think I always say it to anyone who's like somewhere they don't want to be. It's just as much about allowing you to work out where you do want to be. Like it's just what perspective you put on it, basically. I think all the strongest lessons in life come through hard times. So you won't ever become like a well-rounded person without some form of hardship, I don't think. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because if you have it too easy, that you're going to get knocked back at some point, and you don't know how to. And you
also then lack resilience. That the small things hit you harder than they should as well, I think.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
Well, look, talk us through. I always do this. I said when before we click record, it'll be we plan for half an hour, but it's going to be an hour. So, but, talk us through the foundations of Studio Wood. Then you started as a freelancer back in 2013.
2013, yeah. So it came about through when I was at university. I did a sandwich year, so I did a placement. I was really lucky to get that year's placement at Nokia. But while I was there, they ended up getting acquired by Microsoft. So they started kind of laying off like big parts of the team. But this was towards the end of that year. But I got to know a lot of people there. And if I jump forward a little bit, I was after university, I'm then working at an agency in London, similar size to us, something about 6 people. And I was freelancing a bit in the evenings for a startup that had spawned up from some ex-Nokia guys who were basically looking to create a wearable camera. And they'd done their first product with a different agency, and then I've been doing some accessories and stuff for it. And then it kind of came to like, right, we want to do the second version. And they were like, should we come and join? If we use the agency you work at, then you can basically design it for us. And I just sort of sensed the opportunity and was like, well, to be honest, you can, or I can leave and set up my own company. Then I 100% design it for you, and you don't have to worry about it going through a filter of someone you've not worked with, essentially.
Yeah.
And I think they liked the ballsiness of that, but they got me to come in and meet all their different directors, and they interviewed me independently. And I think it went quite well. And then essentially I had like a couple of weeks to make a company. So that's why it ended up being Studio Wood, was just because it was a company I was going to freelance under. So I was just like, I'll just call it my own name for now and worry about that later. And it's obviously just stuck since then. But yeah, from 2013 to 2017, I was freelancing in London. Towards the end of that, I rented a small studio in Brixton and with a friend, a little 2-desk studio, just to basically get clients used to me not being on site all the time.
Yeah.
Because I knew I wanted to move out of London. And once that kind of was in motion and I wasn't required, then I was like, right, now it's an easy move. I can pull out of the city, and everyone's used to me being remote anyway. So it was like a very gradual process. And then I didn't hire anyone until 2019. So there's a 6-year freelance period with intent to potentially build a studio. And it's just it just takes time. Like if you're not going to take money, or you're not going to, like, you haven't got investment, or you need, if particularly, I mean, you need to draw an income to pay bills. You've just got to keep going and allow the traction to build itself.
Absolutely.
And then from then, the next chapter of that is sort of from then on to now, slowly growing the team out in Bournemouth to the 7 of us today. Yeah.
So what was the trigger for that first hire then?
I think I was quite fortunate. I'd started working with Chili's when I was in London. And when I first started working with them, it was essentially myself and the 2 founders back then. Kind of saw me as like their first employee, even though I was sort of freelancing and stuff. But I think it got to a place where we've always had a great relationship, and they were growing, they required more. And they're very much, we've got other clients like this as well now, where you have a great relationship with them and they want their growth to also mean your growth. So they don't want to go, we need more from now, so we're going to go somewhere else that can provide more. They're like, we like what you do, we just need to help you get to a place where you can also provide more for us, but through the same lens and the same direction. So I think we've been very fortunate there that we've had relationships that have allowed that growth, and there's been that trust to pull us through that as well. I mean, it's not like they were the only client, but I think having a few central, robust clients we have good relationships with, long-standing, it really makes a big difference to growth, I think.
Fantastic. Yeah. And you got to about 5 people, I think, during the downturn, while studios were like laying people off. So we had you started hiring in 2019, then we had COVID, and I'm guessing a lot of studios hired like crazy at the back end of 2020, 21. Did you get wrapped up in that as well?
So there was just 2 of us through COVID, which helped because it just meant we could be remote and we're a small team. I remember being like flat out busy, a little bit annoyed that everyone I knew seemed to be furloughed on 100% salary, their feet up all day. But like we were grafting through that year for sure. And I think off the back of that, I think we became free off the back of it. We didn't go crazy, but I remember there was so much R&D spending that everyone was like, right, now's the time to activate all this stuff, and people started setting crazy targets off the back of it because they wanted to hit the same growth they'd hit when everyone was at home bored. I was fortunate we only went to 3 and it was like manageable, and then when we went further and became 5 of us, again, some of those like longer standing relationships, we've got long-term year or multi-year contracts with some of them that if there is something that dips, we can fall back on those as like our backbone, our support sort of thing. So again, it's not overreaching. I'm not a big let's grow really quick, really fast and chase big numbers person. I like stability means a lot to me, particularly if people are moving to Bournemouth and changing their life dramatically to be here. And I know there's less jobs around if they don't have one. I think it puts a lot more weight on those choices, I think.
But it kind of, I guess your upbringing, that runs through that, doesn't it? It's like let's not spend beyond our means. Let's not grow like crazy. Let's be considered. Let's take it. Not necessarily slowly, but let's do it sensibly.
I think it's probably like I had a big, again, like for uni, early job, early career freelance. Like I didn't have a safety net. Like I didn't have a bedroom at home I could go back to if everything fell through. Like I didn't. So when you've built up like on that sort of like sense of survival, that I probably am like quite meticulously careful with like how much runway we have and how steady we are, and that is way more important than growth or how things look externally or whatever. But I think that probably comes from being pretty careful with stuff like that. Yeah.
So the business is pretty gender balanced as well. You've got a good split there.
How are we at now? I think we're 4 guys, 3 girls right now. Hayley left us early this year, and so we've kind of we're nearly there. But it's balanced. It's nicely balanced. Yeah.
pay at the most, and then you augment it with freelancers as well.
Yeah, and it's also like throughout at director level, senior level, like that. So it's all the way through as well. It's not like it's just at the junior level or something.
It's great, and I always I think I see it, in design agencies, because of the variety, it's easier to attract, especially in London. You do see a good representation, across the gender split there. But factor in the location. Bournemouth is lovely, but it's not where everyone wants to work because, as you said, there's not many jobs there. So would you relocate for it? So is there anything that you guys are doing differently to, is it proactive kind of to have that split, or is it just happy accident?
So the gender split is always, it probably wasn't like conscious early on. I think I've always just evaluated people for the work, but I think in the style of our work, it's always had quite like a neutral feel to it. So I think it's not like we've ever had a massive swing of like 80+% of the applicants are male. It's always been quite balanced, and even when we interview candidates, so it's almost like created itself. There's never really been an intent of like this hire needs to be this way. It's kind of like come through quite naturally, I think. But in terms of Bournemouth, like I actually thought it would probably have more impact on us than it has, which makes me feel confident about anyone if they want to kind of start a business outside of London that's creative. So Celine joined us. She moved from France. Well, actually, no, she's French, but she was working in Copenhagen at the time. She moved here.
Okay.
Song, who joined us 4 months ago, moved from South Korea. She originally studied at the RCA 2 years ago, went back to Korea and has just moved here to join us. So that in itself, I find mind blowing that like someone will come. So,
why wouldn't you move to London?
For that application, we didn't pay to share it anywhere, and we had 350 applications for that. Just by sharing it for our own social. So I think we're also at a time where like if it's a junior job, they're few and far between, and there's a lot of people, and you do really need to be hungry, willing to move to get in now. So we're kind of, that level of role was more fortunate. I think it's harder for us at like a senior level, I'd say, when people have started to settle more, they're more grounded, they might have children, house, mortgage, whatever. That's probably the harder hire, I'd say, if we end up having to do that again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you do see, the more senior you get, the more, as you're raising a family, you do want to move out of London, see that. But then it's quite often they'll move out of London, but to areas where the family are, so it's still a bit of a, still a lottery whether they'll be able to relocate to your area, Interesting. You mentioned, so you had 350 odd applicants to the junior role. Just ballpark, how many of those, ended up being spoken to or had interviews?
That's a good question. We do like an initial phase, and then kind of people come in for a second one. I think maybe 6 or 7 initially, and then we probably spoke to like a final 3, and I think 2 of them we ended up taking on in the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are you looking for, in those kind of, those applications, the portfolio, the CV that almost none of them would have had?
It's tricky to like distill it all down, because I feel like it's almost like quite an emotional or like felt reaction rather than like a logic reaction. I think that for the first bit, I think it's join up. Is there a skill level they're hitting here and a level of thinking that fits us? Is there the way they approach things, a potential like style overlap that works? And then when we meet them, I think it's more about how personable they are, how they fit with the team. Could we work with them? How would that balance be? I think even in a way, I suppose one thing I'm slightly more conscious of than saying, oh, I want this hire to be from this background or this gender or whatever, is actually from a personality point of view. I'm always really trying to keep a balance of the team there. Like if we start to lean too introverted, I'd probably be more inclined to look towards hiring someone who's extroverted, or someone who's like if we like everyone's a bit more thinking leaning, then try and find something a bit more emotionally led. And there's other voids and balances that we're trying to look at there. So I'd say for the most part, it's probably an evaluation of like looking at what voids we have at that time, which I know isn't probably a useful thing for anyone to hear because it's not something you can target. But it is true from being on the other side of hiring now that there's a lot in what that person needs and the hole they're filling. Sometimes doesn't mean that like you didn't get the job because you're the wrong candidate. Full stop. It's just that you're the wrong candidate, unfortunately, at the wrong time. So it's more of a timing issue than like a personal or skill issue, if that makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely. Especially at that level, it's like you've got very little to judge someone on. It's a university degree, placement, how their CV or portfolio actually presents and looks. That's a large part of it, especially in design. But what non-design work experience, have they done the retail work, the kind of the bar work, whatever it might be, that a lot of people might not even put on their CV because they don't think it's relevant. But it's those little indicators that show that are they going to deal with customers? Well. What of the 7 or so that you met? Obviously, you heard a few of them, but were there any common themes? Anything that made them kind of need to speak to that person? Anything that stood out?
I'd probably say when someone, I don't want to say who or what, but there were some that were like pushing the boundaries of what programs they were using, even like what their approach was, because I think that's something I'm probably looking for a bit more now with where we're going with AI, that the current like process of design is probably going to get dismantled and rebuilt in a different way. So I'm kind of like, if I can find someone that's got like a slightly different approach, or that's being tailored from what they feel works for them, and they truly understand themselves and their abilities, and they're leaning into their strengths rather than they're just following a path they've been told to follow. That level of like self-reflection and discipline of learning, like going, hang on, I wasn't taught this at uni, but I think this is important. There's a certain curiosity that they're like, I find this interesting, so I'm going to build this parametric model that can do this because I just find, like, because I want to. Like, there's no incentive other than pure curiosity and intrigue. And I think I value that a lot in people I'm probably looking to do, particularly at junior level. I think it shows that if you are going to go for a point of change, which we are, that those people will adapt to that change and they're willing to learn. And I think that's going to be really important in the next few years.
Amazing. The last question on this before we move on. Have any of them, whether it's this round or previously, but do you ever get candidates calling the studio?
We don't have a phone for that.
Okay. That's that question stuffed.
We used to share an office with a guy who had like a VoIP phone, and it's just like 90% of his calls were just junk. And for me, like, I really have to like lock into a task. I like laser in on it, and like there's something as small as like a phone call can really like just flick me out of that. And I just find we don't really need it. It's almost just more of a burden than something that actually benefits us, I'd say.
Yeah. I guess the comparison then is, or the compromise is, how many of them kind of would message or kind of follow up? Because I think that's something that doesn't happen enough.
Yeah. In the people who applied, or
the people who applied, it's like it's too easy just to click apply and then move on.
Well, I'm fortunate. Like, Celine looks after the jobs email now, and we have this policy that ever since I started, we replied. If not everyone who replies like sporadically, but if we advertise for a job, we will reply to everyone who's applied, even if they didn't get it. So he would have replied to all 350 people, good or bad. I think like she did. I think I had to talk to her actually, because she did get some pretty nasty like responses back from just people who just didn't make it through. And but I think it probably comes that we are in quite a tense time, and it is hard, and people are facing a lot of rejection, and having to keep pushing forward with that is difficult. But yeah, we will get back to everyone if they've applied for a role.
I mean that's credit to you, because I think most would look at that volume. I haven't got time for that. I'll just reply to the people who've been in to see me, or that have reached out. But Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs that people are getting angry for getting feedback because, my view is that even if it's a no, at least you can move on.
Exactly. I think sitting in that unknown period is horrible, and that's why we get back to everyone, because it could be stalling you from doing something else, or it can have a big effect on people's lives, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, well, let's talk about something you feel quite strongly about. The class and access. You mentioned that when we've spoken before that the industry you feel is drawn from the 7% or so that went to private school, while 93% of the country didn't. So maybe talk us through that. Give us some context around that view. The kind of your experience of that. Obviously, coming from a working class background yourself. And this kind of goes back to the paid interns side of things as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think for me, I grew up, at times lived in social housing, lived with my grandparents in their council house I had a very turbulent lower life upbringing, hung around with a lot of the wrong people. But again, when you live in a certain area, that's what happens, right? So I think it gives me such an awareness, and I think I've done a lot of research and I've read a lot around it to help me understand like all the perspectives, and where I've kind of ended up. And you look at this with I forget the name of the chart, but there's data that basically tracks like if you start in like the 10th, say if you split the percentile of a nation up from 10, 20, 30 up to 100, that you get like a relatively like free movement between say the 20, 30th and say 80th percentile of a nation. So if you've grown up around middle class, which is the majority of people who are like in a joint university level education or role or job, that you witness people move up and down, and where you see at the top, what you see is the top and what you see is the bottom, because you've not experienced the true top and the true bottom. It gives you this perception that like meritocracy exists and there's this freedom of movement. But the reality is if you're in the bottom 10, 20% or in the top 10 or 20%, there's like an insane stickiness that like people in this area just don't, it's very difficult to rise out of that. Or if they do, they might go up a few increments, but not all the way up. And the same this way. And it's like, there's stuff that tracks it against IQ, that it can become irrelevant, even how smart you are. If you've got a certain amount of wealth that's compounding in your family and assets, it's very difficult to move down. Like you're just, you're almost stuck in there because of that compounding effect, as much as someone stuck in a social housing situation where they can't get enough money, or even at points like the cost of living is so cheap that you're like, hang on, I've got to face a massive uphill struggle just to become like a homeowner. And also then to do that, I'd have to remove myself from my community that my family have lived here for generations. So there's like a huge like social ripping you do if you kind of move up as well, that I think doesn't get talked about enough. But yeah, for me it's more at the same time, if you are able and you want to be able to move up from a lower percentile, I think that should be a possibility. And I think in the design industry it isn't talked about enough, yet there's like an insane amount of data across like all the creative sector that shows how terrible it is, and how it's only getting worse actually as well.
So what, in your view, what can we be doing better as an industry? What kind of practical steps can someone listening to this can they implement in their business, or kind of or prompt within their business if they're working there?
So I'd say, mentioned it before, but paying interns, like, and not just paying them a little bit, like paying them at least minimum wage or living wage ideally. And again, even if you're not a business owner, I think pushing to get that policy in a business, I think makes a huge difference. Again, I had to turn down work because I'd go interview it. I'd pay to get the train to London, have a great interview, and at the end be like, does this pay? Because I can't, I have to pay rent. I don't know anyone who lives in London, and find out it paid £10 a day for food. And I'm like, well, I can't do that, can I? I've had the door closed a few times because of that. And again, that was a while ago. I don't know how prominent they are now. I feel like it's all a bit silent, but I'd say it's a huge thing that should exist and should be normalized, is like, and I think the other thing is then being strong when you're like, say you run a company, and I get this, if people get hold of your email and they'll they'll basically send you an offer and be like, look, I just want experience. I'll come and work for free. And I can imagine if you don't have that as a value, then someone who's, say, fairly decent offering to come work for free for you is quite a enticing offer. But I think it's about being strong-willed and leading with ethics rather than like what you can gain from like a capitalistic sensibility or sense, and knowing it's not the right thing to do collectively, I think. And then another one would be supporting state schools, like awards that only reward state school educated students. I think offering mentorship for people that come from. I've done reach outs to find like working class mentees before. I think mentoring can be a great way to do it, and there are various places you can do it through if you don't want to do it yourself. Trying to think of the main one now. Michael here did it and said it was excellent. I'll send you the who it was after.
That'd be amazing.
The network. There's places like the 93% Club, I think it's called, run by someone called Sophie Pender, who's like a big advocate for state school educated children, and or just anyone who's state school educated. That's like across the board network. It's not just creative. It's a really good one to be aware of. And I think just supporting state schools generally, like if you've got state schools near your studio or environment, we normally have at least a couple of placement students do their work experience here. We just had someone 2 or 3 weeks ago from a local state school, but we'll have them come through. And again, for them to just get awareness of what life's like in a studio, give them eyes on that, or if again, it might further their passion to go on and do that in a way like we did. If they haven't got visibility of that as something they can do, it can mean a lot to someone like that.
I mean, as a hiring strategy as well, there's many companies that do really well from their succession planning is, take on interns from the local university or colleges, apprentices. And then when they go back and finish their studies, they might come back, but you basically, you've paid them for a year. They've got some great experience. You've had like a year-long interview to see whether they'll be a good fit. And it means that, you go into that hire with a lot more certainty. Because that person, they know how you work, and even if they go off and do things, 2 years down the line, which, most graduates do and, probably should, it's still, that's a lot more certain than taking on someone that, has just applied and gone through like a couple of hours of interviews.
Exactly. And I think so that is what happens. I think, when you're in an industry where if a lot of the internships are low paid or unpaid, then those free opportunities and long-term interviews only go to one part of society. So that's the problem we've got, which again is why it's so important to like offer the fair pay. So, and again, what's tricky about that is that's only happening once someone's gone to university. And another thing we do, and people are open to do this if they want, is I see the like education landscapes changing massively at the moment, and the cost of university is so high that's putting a lot of people off. So we've always, on our job applications, we always have a university degree as a nice to have, not as essential.
Okay.
Because I have a feeling that there's going to be more and more people, if they're savvy, will go, hang on, there's a way I can educate myself and learn about this topic that isn't through getting 60 grand in debt. And I kind of put it there because I'm hoping to meet that person one day. And I want them to be like, do you know what? I evaluated that. Like I said, that curiosity, self-drive, intellect, wit, where they're like, Join, I worked out that I could do that path because that path didn't suit me. Like, that's the sort of mindset I want in the studio. Not I'm just taking path A because my parents said I should take path A. Like,
I met I think it was around Oxford somewhere, and this was going back years. This is like 8 or 9 years ago. But this young, I think I think he'd renamed himself, but his name was something like Peregrine. So it sticks out, and he didn't have any qualifications. He might have had a HNC, I think, but he, at the time, he was earning well, he must have been in his early to mid 20s. And at that time, kind of, earning around 80, 90 grand. And I was like, I spoke to him as a junior recruit. I was like, I have no idea. This guy is impressive. No idea what I can do, you know, with him, but he's working for like motorsport teams and like without it, and he just through hustle and through, you know,
grit.
just working hard and grit and just having a natural talent, had been given a shot, made the most of it, and then networked his way into these great opportunities and done these fantastic, worked for some awesome startups, worked within some big teams.
Yeah.
And it just, it was like, you don't need my help. Yeah. You know, I'll introduce you to some cool people, but I think you're going to be fine. You know,
and need to meet the right people and do it yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, that's a bit from the memory banks there. Do you? You might already be doing this, but would you consider, looking into apprenticeship degrees?
Yeah, it's I should have mentioned that before actually. So I've talked to Bournemouth Uni and the Arts Uni here before, and a few different. I think I've spoken to people at Priestman Good. I've spoke to sort of a few people at different agencies and internal teams. There basically isn't a product or industrial design degree apprenticeship, but there should be.
There definitely should be, yeah.
Yeah, and then, so it's something I've been talking to different people about and trying to see if I can get the right people in the right room and that be pulled together. But it's something I'm a big advocate for, because I think that would drastically help access, but also it just makes a lot of sense. But I think what's tricky is geography. Like, again, everything's so London-centric, and I'm talking to the unis down here. They kind of need placement opportunities that geographically make sense, where they can go in for education and be on site for work. So, but yeah, I mean, if anyone listens to this and they want to get involved, or if they have, or they already are on that path, then it's 100% something our industry needs to have and should have. Yeah.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah. I mean, it solves that, for a large degree, it solves that problem of not being able to find a placement as well. Or being able to take a placement. Because, if you go through university and you don't do that sandwich, it's really, really hard to get that first design role or engineering role, to have that as part, and you're learning kind of valuable kind of workshop and design skills along the way that, you come out head and shoulders above, your peers. What I like about the, I don't want to kind of give too much praise to Dyson, but their, degree scheme, it was really solid, in terms of producing some fantastic talent there, because a lot of it was practical. Obviously, you're working at Dyson whilst you're learning.
Yeah.
So surely there's capacity within kind of the small to medium-sized companies and design houses, engineering businesses of the country to facilitate that.
I think it goes back to what you said as well there, where I think that we're definitely an industry of like micro businesses. So it's hard. You kind of need some of the bigger ones or the big agencies or in-house teams to probably shift something like that. It's quite hard to do and to support when you only have like so much turnover and so much free time. So it's, I don't know the answer, but it would be amazing if that did exist. I think it would be massive for the industry for sure.
And maybe that's a future huddle that we need to kick off. But
before we dive back in, this one is for founders and CEOs building physical products. If you are thinking about hiring a VP of product, chief product officer, or head of R&D, this is not just another hire. It defines how your roadmap is set, how your teams are built, and how your company competes. At Codu, we specialize in securing senior product and engineering leaders for hardware businesses entering their next stage of growth. Focused, discreet, high consequence. If that decision is on your horizon, find me, Chris White, on LinkedIn, and let's talk it through.
We're kind of coming up to end of time, but I want to talk about AI because obviously we've had some dipped into it earlier, but it ties into juniors as well. But we're looking at AI, things changing so quickly, and by the time this episode goes out, it's probably going to feel very dated. What we're talking about now, but what are your views on someone coming into design now as a rookie, as a junior, with the job changing, because of AI? What should they be focusing on? What would you like to see, the next generation of designers being awesome at? to be relevant, I suppose. But then also, the seniors that are there now, whether it's at Studio Board or out, just in general, how should they be preparing themselves, for life with AI?
I potentially, across the board and probably more senior, I think it wouldn't hurt if you were like more of a specialist than a generalist. And that might be different in different businesses, but I feel like AI is going to become that like generalist layer that's connecting, almost like the connective tissue between everyone. But it's not, I think one thing it's definitely going to struggle with nearer term is like the physicality of product development. Like if you're great at hands-on model making, prototyping, testing, or the end of the process, mechanics, like it's not going to tap into that near term. I think to answer it like how we're shaping up is like, I do have a bit of like a AI strategy that kind of is known between the team here, where we kind of accept that like from an intelligence level, it's going to become a layer. It's going to become part of our process of where we check ideas against or run ideas through, and it will integrate with everything. But the way I'm setting it up, and I think it's fortunate we're a smaller team, is I'm almost different people are going to act as different heads of different things. Again, where they have a specialism, whether that's visualization, sort of DFM, creative judgment, sort of design language, community, events, like we'll leverage it, but there will be different owners that like will almost own what I perceive eventually will be the normalization of like agents that work for them. So I think in a junior level, I think that means you're going to have to be way more comfortable with making decisions and delegating, which sounds weird to do when you're like new to something. But I think with AI, that's going to be important. So I think having like self-confidence that you can give direction and also make the right decisions and show that you're capable of making the right decisions will become more important. That's not really been a junior skill before. And then another reflection on that, particularly from a design point of view, is that I find with a lot of juniors, you have to, like if you're designing for a certain company and a certain design language and identity, it might differ from what you actually like. And it takes a while to get people to be able to switch off what they like at a moment of designing something so that they can kind of evaluate what they're designing for that brand or against that identity independently of what they like. And it can take years for someone to sort of make that journey where they're judging an idea as an idea and not holding on to it as their idea and pushing it because it's their idea. It's like diminishing that like ego sense of self with the idea. And I think that if you can show that as a junior, that'll be a good skill set. Because again, if you're going to have to give direction and make decisions, being able to take yourself out of it and be able to see it and understand the bigger picture, there's a certain like maturity to that. They're all quite difficult things because I think if anything, you can already see this in how like what's happening with where jobs are shifting towards senior and away from junior, that they all tend to be like psychological traits that lean towards people that have a certain maturity, that have had a certain amount of life experience, and then that benefits that. But at the same time, you can have someone who's young, who's had a lot of life experience and they've learned a lot and they can be mature for their years. So I think that maturity probably become more important rather than less important, I think.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's the AI is going to be great for a lot of things. And like I say, that intelligence level is fantastic. Being able to crunch data really, really quickly and get the average is great, but you still need that, that world experience, that kind of knowing what good looks like, knowing how to interrogate the assistant essentially, because that's what it should be. I think it should be an assistant, being able to, challenge that because it does get stuff wrong, infuriatingly. So, and knowing what I really enjoy working with AI and problem solving, figuring out what I want to get and then reverse engineering how to build the prompt to get it to do the thing. Like that, I've actually really enjoyed learning how to do that. But it's, if you aren't wired that way, if you don't kind of know what the end result is that you're looking for, then it can just be. I commented on LinkedIn earlier, something about you could spend 10 minutes waiting for the prompt you put in to produce a render, and then another 10 minutes iterating on that. And by the time you've actually got something that you think is, oh, that's okay, it's like you could have bashed out a load of sketches. You know, you could have just done it yourself. My friend who works in SQL does the same.
Yeah.
He's told he's got to use AI, and he's problem solving because he's mandated to use Claude.
Right.
But the problems he can see in the code, he can just fix within like a minute. And it's, and yet he gets pulled up. He fixes the problem, gets pulled up because he hasn't used Claude to do it, even though it would have taken him twice as long. Yeah. So
we're still finding our feet with it in terms of where it fits and why, and like you said, how you control it to make sure you get the output and steer it in the process. But it's like two things at the same time for me. It's like near term, like you said, how you leverage it from like a prompting generation supporting process point of view, and then longer term, like it's this anticipation that say it becomes agentic and can work 24/7 and like run tasks without continuous input or like supervision. What that looks like is like a whole. I think at that point it becomes like almost collaboration potentially as well. It's hard to see and like hard to like know, but like if it genuinely gets to like AGI level intelligence, then there's no reason why it wouldn't become more of a collaborator, and that's going to be a whole other thing. And again, I just feel quite thankful we're not a huge company, because I think it's going to be massively disruptive. Basically, the bigger you are,
I think most big companies don't have a plan. I've spoken to a few big companies that they do, but I've heard from other senior people at other big companies that it's just the mandate is just use AI. Like my friend who works for a big betting company, it's like the higher ups want us to use AI, but they're not giving us any training, and there's no kind of cohesive kind of library of prompts or kind of how to. It's just like everyone's on their own. It's just like it must be costing them an absolute fortune in credits. But anyway, we got to go off on a side topic. So we're going to wrap up with some quick fire questions.
Sure.
So I'm just going to fire them at you. Just say the first thing that comes to mind. So plumber at 16 or a 40k designer in London, you know, which would you tell your son to take, honestly?
Ooh. I think it depends on who he is and what he's interested in. It depends on his character. I don't think I could take like what. No. I mean, my son now he's 6. I'd tell him to do the design one, because he is like a little mini me, to be honest. Like he's already doing. I think he did this big Volvo crane Lego set when he was like just over 6. So he's already doing things I was doing when I was younger, and he loves drawing. So I think for him it would be design. But I'd say like if I didn't know him personally and it was just HR, I think you've just got to lean into what are their interests and passions and skills, and separate yours from that, I'd say.
But you're still confident there's going to be a design career in 10 years? That's what I guess.
Oh, right.
I'm gleaming from that.
I think if you want, job security, again, it's ironic, right? Because I was, when I worked in IT, both my parents told me not to go to university. They were like, we won't help you. It's risky. You're getting loads of debt. We think you should just keep your job. It's safe. You'll get a good pension. Like, you've got a job for life. And again, I feel like it's almost like that question. But if it's not, if you're not passionate about it, then you only have one life, I think. And I do believe that like design will exist beyond where AI is going. Like, I just don't think it will change. But I'd be more worried if I was in like digital design or UX UI. And I think you look back over history, like the physicality and meaning we put into objects has existed since we've existed. And I don't think we're suddenly going to not care about human meaning and how that's represented in three-dimensional form. So personally not worried, but I would probably arguably be more worried if I was more digitally leaning.
Absolutely. I'm with you 100% there. One piece of design that everyone celebrates but you can't stand?
That's a good question. that's a tricky one. Everyone celebrates. I'm trying to think of something that like people do universally celebrate now. I could think of ones like design media celebrates. I don't know if everyone does, but for me, it's just extremely high value, one of one ticket price stuff, like join Mark Newson's lounge chair or anything of that sort of era of the celebrity like the personality designer era. That I think it's fine when it's like costed down and accessible, or when it's just crazy money and then that builds a career in itself. I just find it a bit distasteful personally, but yeah.
So it's going to largely be something in the furniture world then, isn't it? I think
probably probably. Yeah.
A product that ships in the millions, or well, I don't really know the answer to this one, but I'm reading it. So, a product that ships in the millions, or a one-off that wins every award. Which matters more?
Easily the product that ships in the millions. Yeah.
So, for the listeners' benefit, these are written before before we go through the interview. So, our best pre-read. Okay, best object you've ever designed in 3 words.
Best product.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. I do think the Chili's bottle, we'll say that. I do think like, I love that there's a simplicity and a level of it being quite iconic for what it is as a water bottle in a hugely saturated market. And but for me, it's like, I remember being like, early teenage, like when we first got a mobile phone, standing in a phone shop on the high street, and I remember looking outside at all the people walking down the high street and thinking, God, how cool would it be if you were the person who designed like the 3310 phone or whatever? Because just you just to see people using an object that came from your mind and you sketched and you created the form of and the interactions of, and you just see people like not knowing that you did it, but just using it and enjoying using it. Is very cool. I think there was a moment with the Chili's Bowl where they sponsor Glastonbury every year, and I think Fred again did a set in 2023, and it was like a beautiful sunset. Like I wasn't there, I remember watching it, and they gave all of the artists the Chili's Bottle with the lineups for each stage.
Oh, amazing!
And he was one of the few people that actually used it in his set, and they've got like a great shot when he was like drinking from it with the sunset, and I was like, yeah, that's awesome. They're also just seeing again people that you admire for other types of creativity, like unwillingly like sharing in something you've created. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, it's one of the things that I love about being in this industry as well, being kind of working for this industry is, and by extension, I can recruit for a design team, and then I'll see their products, and I know I'd play a small part in.
You must see probably more than happening. Individual designers, because the whole full network almost. Yeah,
it's. It's awesome. I absolutely love it. And it ranges from like the consumer goods, like you're saying, the millions of products through to kind of medical devices, and they obviously don't buy those on the store shelves, but the impact there,
exactly,
it's hugely rewarding.
I'd actually really love to get more involved in medical work. I think again, just from that impact angle, like don't care about awards or whatever. It's just to have that sort of impact on someone's life through something you've designed. It's amazing.
Huge. Yeah. Two more questions. The most overrated tool in your studio right now?
It's funny because Michael, he kind of looks after the workshop and fitted it out. I don't know if he got any, but he wanted some like hilarious stuff. And it would probably be overrated by him. I think he wanted, he'll listen to this and laugh, right? We didn't get it, but I'm going to say it anyway. He wanted like a compressed air gun and with a canister. And I was like, why do we need that? Like, what would we use that? He's like, oh, well, you kind of just you can just blow all the stuff off the one workbench onto the floor. And I was like, yeah, but you can just brush it off. Why do we need to spend like 100, 200 pounds on this air compressor? He's like, oh, well, also it's really useful when you cycle in and it's hot. I can just stand there and just blow cold air on myself. I'm not dropping £200 on an air compressor. You can have like a cold air shower every morning. But yeah, I think if Michael could have an unlimited budget, we'd have a lot of overrated tools. But he'd have his like idols, Adam Savage. So he's big on. He loves sort of having all the kit. But it's great.
That's the guy
Michael,
from Mythbusters.
Have an amazing workshop. From one of the Mythbuster guys. Yeah. But yeah, that doesn't really answer because we don't have that.
No.
I'm trying to think of an actual overrated bit of kit. I'm probably quite, again, it's a bit boring, but I'm quite cautious what we buy and what we spend our money on. And saying that, Sophie's 10 times more cautious than me. So if anything, she's very good at keeping everyone on the right path with where they spend the money with the studio. Yeah.
Sounds like you've got good system there then for not. So I know I've wasted a lot of money on shiny tech.
I mean, this stuff you could say cost a fair bit, but this is all stuff I've personally bought. So yeah, I could tell you what I personally buy that I don't use that cost a lot. I mean, that keyboard there actually was a lockdown build I did that I just loved all the components and built it. Probably cost about £500, but I don't even use it. It's just an ornament. Mainly because it has keycaps that are just dots, not letters. Pure aesthetic choices, but studio is more sensible than I am probably personally.
We've got to have our follies though, haven't we? Last question then. One trait you will always hire for, even over raw talent.
Probably drive. If that's a talent. Or not a raw talent, but like drive or grit, determination, just that someone's got. I think I always like look for someone who's got they've got their own engine. Like you're not having to go and like constantly like throw coal in their engine to get them going. Like they're self-motivated and they're hungry and they're driven, even if they only stay with you for a period of time on their journey. But like that, they're good people to have around. Yeah,
you'd rather course correct than have to get them going in the first place.
And I think in an industry that we're so fortunate that we get to do what we do and be creative and draw and create these things that go into the world, that to not understand that and see that, I find quite frustrating. So I think also, probably having a strong self-awareness of how fortunate we are to do what we do, to be here, and then that almost be the drive and the passion come through that. Sometimes I mean I've met a lot of people that you kind of forget, or they haven't worked in join a normal job in a like how most people work in the country, that they don't have that comparison, and then they can get a bit lost with that, I think, sometimes. Yeah,
absolutely. I'd agree. Wow. So I think that's a wrap. We got to well over the hour that I said we'd hit, but I've really enjoyed our conversation, James. For anyone listening that's interested in either joining Studio Wood, either on as a full-time member of the team or freelance, or indeed any founders or kind of leaders within business that maybe looking to find out more about working with Studio Wood as an agency, what's the best way for them to get in touch? How can they find out more about you?
Probably we've got the website www.studiowood.co.uk. General email to get in touch with us, hello@studiowood, jobs at, and then we've got social channels on LinkedIn and Instagram, but we're quite lax on Instagram at the moment. So probably LinkedIn is probably a better place to kind of follow what's going along. We're currently going through a big rebrand, so it's kind of why things have stalled a little bit. Once that wraps up later this year, we'll kind of bring everything online a bit more. But yeah,
exciting. And we haven't even brought it up once, but the Women in Design events are where we met. I think we met a couple, haven't we? There was one at Sharp Ninja and then one at Material Matters. But
Material Matters.
But those are run fairly frequently.
We try to do an event every 3 months, whether that's like a Women in Innovation series event led by Sophie, or a different one. We've got one at the end of July, which is at the studio here in Bournemouth.
Okay, cool.
We might have a few spare tickets, so if you're interested, I'd tap up Sophie or email or message through LinkedIn. But yeah, that's just a get together. But I think our next event after that will probably be about we're doing one about 3 months after that probably. But we haven't put any details out about that yet. But we're starting to line up speakers. We've got some good speakers for that one.
Well, do keep me posted. We'll post about that in the Y Design community. And and anyone listening, if you're running events in design and engineering, let us know, because we'll promote them as well. Through the socials. So, James, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing your story. We'll kind of look forward to it coming out. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for having me, Chris. Appreciate it.
No problem.
All right.
Thanks for listening to Y Design. If this episode gave you some new ideas, share it with someone in your team who'd find it useful. And follow the show so you don't miss what's next. And if you're building a product team or looking for your next challenge in design or engineering, that's exactly what we do at Kodu. We help companies hire smarter and faster, and help great talent find work that actually fits. I'm Chris White. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and let's keep raising the bar for design leadership. Until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep asking why design.